Here we are, folks, getting it revved up on another weeknight, headed toward week 6 here at the Voice of College Football. It is Thursday night. We got one college football game. You might be checking out the Rams and the Niners as well. And, of course, the Rams need a bit of a comeback here in the fourth quarter, and I know one guy that's very concerned about that. We got Ty Hudson here. Tusk Talk with Ty. Appreciate Ty being here. We will take your comments and questions there in the chat, and we will leave the link for the call-in portion of this. But we got 3 awesome guests lined up, starting with Ty. Ty, what's going on tonight?
Well, keeping up with the Rams. Got my lucky, I've got to have the cup there, the Ram Cup, and gotta, keep up with my boys. Off to a good start this season. I kind of figured they would struggle with the Niners, though, so. Luckily, I've got the game paused, so hopefully no spoilers in chat. But hopefully the Rams can figure it out here in the second half.
Yeah, so let's turn to, of course, Arkansas football, and Arkansas football has been in an upheaval status here because of one Sam Pittman out the door. Now, once they drop these games early in the season, and considering what the schedule is, which is just extremely brutal, I figured that he wasn't going to survive the season. But I thought he was going to survive the season, but be out at the end of the season. So are you kind of surprised that they pulled the plug early?
Well, I was going to say, since the last time you and I talked, so much has happened. And no, I'm not surprised. And, I know there's always the conversation of money and kind of how his extension worked from I think it was 2022, career average below 500, the buyout comes down or whatever. So there was kind of this conversation in the offseason, this last year after beating Texas Tech in their bowl game that, well, maybe Sam will renegotiate and they'll bring down the buyout, and maybe he'll just kind of ride off into the sunset down into Hot Springs and just, live out his best life down there and kind of skip 2025 or, go into early retirement, but, to skip out of the 2025 season and let Arkansas move on. That didn't happen. Kind of makes you wonder if you're going to fire someone this early in the year. Did that conversation ever happen? And if it didn't, why not? Because now here you are, you're in the middle of the season, you were toe to toe with Ole Miss, who might be a playoff contender. And then you lost to Memphis, who kind of has a habit of beating some pretty good schools at home. And then you get blown out to Notre Dame. I think we had said in the offseason, if he goes on a losing streak, getting ready into SEC play, it's over. There's no way he survives that. And I got a lot of pushback on that. And from people in my circle and elsewhere, like, no, they're going to let him ride out that contract or let him ride out the season and maybe even, have some kind of excuse to bring him back next year because that's actually when his buyout expires. I just said, no way. If he's riding a losing streak, if you can't get past Ole Miss and Memphis and you lose to Notre Dame, I even said just losing to Notre Dame would probably get him canned. But obviously getting blown out like that, Hunter had finally seen enough. And that kind of makes you wonder, why did you bring him back to begin with? Why did you give him – this was 2 years. This is a second year after that disappointing 4-win season. And we kind of – nobody should be surprised by this. This is kind of this is just kind of the way things have been. He can keep you toe-to-toe with some teams that, maybe you thought would beat them pretty good and then – get blown out by, well, I don't know what to make of Notre Dame yet. I think the jury's still kind of out on whether or not they're truly a playoff team, but they certainly looked like it against Arkansas, and it cost Pittman his job, as it should have.
All right, Ty, you can take it from me. Notre Dame is one of the 10 best teams in the country.
Is that from you?
Yes, take it from me.
Okay.
I don't care what the record is. All right. So, yeah, that's what is crazy about this situation is that he was this close to being 4-0 walking into the Notre Dame game. People not keeping up, they're driving into the red zone down 6 into the red zone to score a touchdown, just moving the ball at will in the final 30, 45 seconds of the Ole Miss game on the road against Ole Miss. And we see Ole Miss undefeated right now, just beat LSU. They might be playing for an SEC championship. They were that close to beating Ole Miss. They fumbled the football. They fumble the ball inside the 10 against Memphis, lose 32-31 that game. So, yeah, just that close to being 4-0. And then they just caved in against Notre Dame. Like, I was primed to watch this game. And once we hit 28-13, 35-13, I'm like, okay, see ya. I've seen this. So my evaluation of this football program is that, number one, this is a tough place. It's a tough job, I think, because there are expectations that you should win. There's history. So the fans like want a look back to former glory, but the high school football play in the state isn't great. And it's tough to get players there. But again, there are high expectations, and it's the SEC, and the schedule is going to be brutal, and it is.
Yeah, and then they're adding a 9th SEC game, which I know your crowd. When I come on here, that's usually a question that either the comment section's asking about or you're asking about. When are they going to add that 9th game? And now they're doing that starting next year. So it's an uphill battle. Arkansas is it's a weird situation to be in. And again, something else I bring up a lot, not just here but everywhere. I mean, you are kind of in the middle of nowhere. I mean, your closest, major, whatever, not a major city, but your bigger city is Tulsa. The closest big attraction in the area is like Silver Dollar City. It's Branson, which is on the other side of the it's in Missouri, right? You got to travel about an hour and a half to get there. You're in the middle of nowhere. And I'm only saying that as far as just like an attraction to the area. There's plenty of money here. And again, we know this, like this is, this is mostly known, especially in the SEC. Like, some people would refer to Arkansas as like, okay, yeah, you guys are in the middle of nowhere, but my God, we're in this era now where, of course we were in the NIL era where you could just pay players. Where are all these millionaires and billionaires? Like, what are they doing? Why are they sitting on their hands, not helping the program out as far as like the NIL when it was just simply going through that avenue for, to pay the players? What's going on? And we've known, if people have really been paying attention, I think he kind of lost the room after the 9-win season when he goes into that next year and he only wins 6 regular season games. I think then people started to figure out, wait a minute, this was a better team than that. Like KJ Jefferson, like what's going on? And then the next year you win just 4 games. Then you completely lose people and then you hang on to him for an additional 2 years. So I think people with money are just like, nah, I'm not feeling this. Like, why would I put money into this when there's not going to be any ROI? There's not going to be any return on investment with this.
So tell me this, Ty, if there's a possible thought among some fans there at Arkansas that even though they love the football and would love the football to thrive, that NIL being this major component of all of this now suddenly, that it's easier to win. There's a easier path in basketball. Get 2 or 3 really good players and you got the coach. Yeah. He's one of the best in the country and he can bring players, that's for sure. And obviously the for as good as the football history is, the basketball rivals it or maybe better. That it could be a powerhouse basketball school, and shoot, if we can get to a bowl game and just kind of punt football and just be okay at football and not be embarrassing, then why not throw our resources all at basketball?
Yeah, that's often a question, especially from the diehards. I got a lot of diehard basketball fans that are like, they don't pay attention to football. They're just like, and they've been that way. And some of them are about my age or a little younger, or a little older. And they're like, listen, Ty, we all grew up during when Danny Ford was here, and what was going on with basketball versus what was happening with football. Yeah, they made the SEC championship. It got blown out by Spurrier. What year was that? 95, whatever. But that was like the only success they had. Jack Crow, they fired after the Citadel. So, and then you fast forward and you bring in a guy like Houston Nutt, and he breathes new life into the program. And then you bring on these unbelievable running backs like Hillis and Felix Jones and Darren McFadden. And, you sign the number 2, number 3 quarterback out of high school, and Mitch Mustaine from right down the road in Springdale. You bring his head coach, and there's just, of course, that was later on in Houston Nutt's time, and fans were already kind of getting tired of him. But then he kind of brings himself back with the Springdale 5, and it's like off and on. It just feels like fans want they want this to be a football program, but then they're so diehard about the other sports. Can't forget baseball. Like our baseball program, I think every year for over a decade has been self-sustaining. And there's not very many baseball programs that do that around college or, in college baseball outside of like LSU. And I'm assuming, of course, like Texas, schools like that. Arkansas is pretty self-sustaining, and there's so much support from fans for all three of these sports, but they so badly want to be better at football. And it's like, okay, that's fair, especially considering the basketball kind of went on a hiatus from 2000, really from 97 all the way to like until they hired Eric Musselman, which was decades later. So there's just like this hole, and like how did we disappear in basketball in the 2000s? Why has football suffered as long as it has, especially since Petrino was fired? Why can't baseball win a national championship despite the fact that Omaha is the target every year? That's the expectation. And again, not very many programs can say that. So it's fans want the best of all three worlds. And this is a sports heavy state. Let's be real. I love my state. I love that I'm from Fayetteville. There's nothing here. I mean, we have Razorbacks. That is it. There's no pro sports. And like you mentioned, high school sports are just not a big deal down here. Some places they are. Football and Little Rock, basketball is a big deal down there. But it's really just about the Razorbacks on any level. And when you're north of about 3 million people and 60% of the state, if not more, is kind of poor, they I guess it brings them together more about their Razorbacks. So I don't know. It's I would love to get back to that. I was too little to remember, the Hatfield and Lou Holtz. I wasn't even
You're
born.
a kid. I remember that well. Look it down here, Ty. Somebody pointing out here, Texas Dog. If Ole Miss can win, Lane Kiffin can come in and win at Ole Miss, then why can't you guys go get somebody? And that's a perfect segue to the guy that's going to be on the sidelines for the rest of the Wells. Obviously, he's already on the sidelines, but with the head coaching headset on now, Bobby Petrino. So this is funny that you told me this probably 2 years ago, said this is a scenario. You said this when Bobby Petrino was hired as offensive coordinator. You said this is a scenario. We don't pick it up. We don't start winning games. We win 6 or 7 games. Sam Pittman gets fired. Bobby Petrino probably would be an interim, and then people would love for him to take it over.
Yeah.
How real is that possibility?
Well, yeah, I made a video on this before the season started. Honestly, I can't remember everything I put into it. It's the last edited video I've done in the better part of a year. And I published it, I want to say either before fall camp or after fall camp. But I laid out a scenario where football's bad because I've never bought into Travis Williams as a defensive coordinator. And they put Petrino because of how bad things are. Someone's the interim. And then as long as the offense can stay on a path of, putting you in a position to win games and scoring a bunch of points, then Petrino could be a realistic option. Now, he has some pretty big booster support. Frank Fletcher down in Little Rock. And from what I understand, he is not the only millionaire booster that's at least friendly with Petrino. And he's also pissed a lot of people off. I mean, we can't sit here and act like everyone's in love with him here. There's still fans that don't want him to be the head coach. I'll be real. The vocal crowd, especially on social media, want Petrino to be the guy. Well, I say that they believe he's going to be the better option and the most realistic option. If they listen, I don't think he has to guide Arkansas to a bowl game. I don't think he has to win 4 more games to be the guy. It's all going to depend on swinging and missing on option A, option B, and if he's still there, God willing, he's probably going to be the guy. If he can win just 3 more games and keep them in some of these other games, not get blown out, actually have a good finished product on the field that does not resemble what we saw against Notre Dame, but more like what we saw against Memphis, or excuse me, Should have won that one too. But Ole Miss, who's the better opponent there, you put that back out on the field and your offense gets it figured out in the second half, because that's been a concern. Let's be honest. They're not scoring a lot of points in the second half this year. Yeah, it could be a realistic possibility that Petrino is in line to be to return like he did at Louisville, to come back for a second time in Arkansas. And by the way, he does want it. I mean, he is that is public. That is, the U of A's even announced it. He does want a shot at the job. So yeah, it's as realistic as any other coach you could name.
Ty Hudson's here to break down Arkansas football for us. And of course, they're looking for a head coach, one of about 4 schools in the country. It gets more expedited every year, where administrations are impatient and say, these guys are making too much money and we're pouring too much money into this. 3 games in, 4 games in. Obviously, Sam Pittman's had 5 seasons almost in. So into his 4 games and out this season, 5 games and out after a 2-3 start. Notre Dame blowout in Fayetteville. So not that the administration should take this into consideration in any way about their decision, but they understand that if Bobby Petrino is named the head coach, that even though there's this groundswell of love for Bobby Petrino in the state of Arkansas, around the country, there are going to be memes flying everywhere.
There already have been.
Yeah, I'm sure they already have, but head coach, yes, it'll be everywhere.
It's going to be wild. It'll be a big story. I mean, it already is him. When he was brought in as the OC, it was a big story. And yeah, now that he's back at the interim, I mean, as an interim head coach, like, it's only going to get worse, And listen, I'm all for it. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's, at the end of the day, college football is supposed to be entertainment. It's supposed to be fun. And yeah, I would prefer it if you could put some wins in there, and I don't know, maybe one day make a playoff appearance, especially with the expansion coming on. Maybe I'm asking too much just to get in there, and maybe Petrino could be that guy. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. And again, boy, this Tennessee game, I mean, man, you talk about a test, and like you mentioned earlier, the remaining schedule is brutal.
Yes.
It's absurd how tough this is. Tennessee, legitimate playoff contender. A&M, legitimate playoff contender. Auburn, I don't know. I kind of think the jury's out on them a little bit. They're not off to a great start in conference play, but I think they are better than they were a year ago. You got them at home. Mississippi State is better than they were a year ago. A lot better than what they were a year ago. At LSU, at Texas, and then Missouri. Those are all playoff contenders at the moment. That's unreal.
Tusk Talk with Ty. Before we let you go, Ty, this is my last question. If it's not Petrino, I got to think there are all sorts of lists that people are making, including yourself. Yeah. So I'll divide them into 2 halves, and you can go either way on this. Maybe I'm missing something. That there's usually that collection of G5 coaches that are doing really well, young minds in the game that people are impressed with. Jeff Traylor at Texas San Antonio, those kind of guys. Maybe the Memphis coach that just beat you a few weeks ago. Those kind of guys. Then there's the big fish. Does the school go young guy, up and comer, or do they try to make a splash and appease the fan base and say, hey, we made this huge hire?
Well, they seem a little bit more confident this time around than when they hired Pittman. They seem a little bit more confident. And if you listen to local media, and even Hunter himself to a degree, it seems like they're going to be in position to go after somebody. And the question, of course, is always like, if you're going to be attractive to let's say, I don't know who the biggest name actually is. I guess it's debatable. Then you have to get into the conversation of who's realistic. So like Rhett Lashlee is, I mean, he's going to come up on everybody's coaching list. Everybody's. I mean, I'd be shocked if he were to pass up Arkansas, and let's say Florida opens up. Like, I just don't know how. I think he'll be on everybody's short list. I guess the question is, can you facilitate? Can you hit that 20.5 and there be no questions asked? And right now, a lot of schools are struggling. And they're having to cut their, they're having to cut back on the athletic department. They're cutting back like 10 to 12%. I think U of A last I had heard was at like 9 to 10% is what they've cut just into the budget. They've done some seating rearrangements at Bud Walton that apparently has raised millions of dollars. You know, it's all about what position are you in and how attractive will that make you. High school recruiting, it does still play a role. Of course it will, but we all know, Mark, of course you know this, it's about that portal, and it's about how attractive are you financially in the transfer portal. And of course it's going to matter too. How good is that guy, that head coach, at getting talent into the NFL? Because that's still on all these guys. That's on all their minds. Am I going to get to the NFL quicker if I go here, there, or there? That money, I've heard that there's some kids who are like, you know, they're willing to take a little bit of a hit in terms of pay, but if they're going somewhere where they're going to start and they feel like they're good enough and they feel like that system fits them and they're going to boom right out the gate, they're going to be starters, they're going to take that place because they feel like they might get, you know, catapulted in the NFL. They're going to get a legitimate look because they're at a school that's legitimate and they're playing for a coach that's legitimate, that has a history of doing that. If that is the case, if Arkansas can do that, and if they feel comfortable enough, I think they probably are going to go after the Rhett Lashleys, and I don't know who else would qualify in that camp right now, but I know one of the guys, even though he's a group of five, everyone's in on John Sumrall at Tulane, and a lot of people think he could actually be the hottest name in coaching searches. You know, so you need to be in a good position, right, financially, to go after these guys. I do have a short list. My top three it keeps rotating. My number one, I realize you could probably pick apart any one of these. Like, you could pick apart Rhett Lashley. His one and only head coaching gig is at SMU, and he's just now in his second year as a head coach, coaching in a P4 conference. And although he did great last year, yeah. But Rhett would be in my top three, but my number one's Dan Mullen. His background, it's just undeniable, you know, and what he did at Mississippi State, helping them turn that program around, got them at one point ranked number one in the country for
he can coach. He's just a clown, just does dumb things off the field. But in terms of running a program, other than the periphery stuff, you know, showing up with Darth Vader outfits on and you know, running out onto the field like a fool at halftime and getting in melees and doing stupid things like that, or denying that his player threw a shoe at somebody, that, you know, or took the shoe off and all that, doing dumb things. Man, that guy knows offensive football, and he can run a program and win games. He improved Florida immediately. He improved Mississippi State immediately. Yeah,
and I because that is my criteria, it is experience in the SEC. I can understand, you know, Nick Saban going from Michigan State to LSU. Okay, yeah, that's LSU. Or, you know, whatever. You look at what's happened at Alabama, despite the fact they may not be as where their fans feel like they should be. Like, that's one thing to get an out of SEC hire and work at those schools. Schools like Arkansas, Mississippi State, and I would argue, you know, of course, you know, Kiffin had the 1 year at Tennessee, but, you know, it was a good 1 year. You know, so that's, to me, that just makes the most sense. They did the Brett Bielema thing. Brett Bielema didn't work. And I used to tell people all the time, like, I don't care that he came from the Big Ten. I just want a guy with the DNA of winning 3 straight Rose Bowls, and he comes to Arkansas and he can't even put together a single double-digit winning season and can't get to a respectable bowl. Well, I say respectable, you know what I meant. You know, but
are you dissing the work. Texas Bowl? Come on now.
I know it.
Or
yeah,
the
right.
Bowl.
I know the bell. So I think they've already done that, and I think it's, to me, the evidence is staring us right in the face. It needs to be someone with an SEC background, whether that's several years as a coordinator, but mostly a head coach. And yeah, he's a goofball. I think Mullen can be a little goofy. There was also some, you know, Florida fans were not thrilled about the way he was recruiting. There's all sorts of stuff you could talk about. His wins versus top 25 opponents wasn't fantastic, if I remember right. But I just think, given his background, it just feels like, you know what, maybe he could do that at Arkansas. Maybe he could help. And maybe it's a bridge hire. Someone mentioned that it would be a really good bridge hire. Maybe you get 4 years out of him that are really good, and whatever. Either he moves on, or, you know, maybe you feel like you're in a better place financially, you move on. But whatever. You know, I think Dan Mullen is my number one for that reason. Yeah, Rhett Lashley's up there. I do like John Summerall. I'm coming around to John Summerall more. I really am. Love his background. Of course, he played at Kentucky, and he's a defensive-minded guy, and really sound, disciplined teams is what people are telling me. But the more you kind of look at it, yeah, he's never been a P4 guy. He's never been a P4 coach. But yeah, there's some names, and you mentioned Silverfield. Silverfield might be in that mix, maybe for me. But right now, that would kind of be where I'm at, my top 3-ish, top 4. But you could pick apart any single coach. You could pick them apart and say, well, he didn't do that. He didn't do that. You can do that with any of them. And at the end of the day, to me, it's about fit. And I think Mullen would fit Arkansas pretty well.
All right, Ty. Good to see you as always, buddy.
Yeah, man.
We'll let you go watch the Rams, and hopefully they come back. And nobody put the score in the chat.
Nobody spoil it. I've got it paused.
They were going to the fourth quarter when I jumped on here.
Let me get back to my misery.
Tusk Talk with Ty is the place to be. And I'm guessing that there's going to be little talk about Arkansas football in the field, a lot about the coaching situation and basketball real soon. So
yeah, we're getting back into basketball really quick. It's already, it feels like it's already here. Feels like basketball season's already here, but we're really excited.
Thanks, Ty. Appreciate you being here, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We've got a not so great schedule of games in the Big Ten. Not this weekend, no marquee games, but I would tell you that if I could only watch one game in the Big Ten this weekend, probably Nebraska and Michigan State. And we've got Andy Pedersen dropping by from Corn Nation to help us break it down.
You got my name right.
Yeah, I tried my best to screw it up, but I accidentally, got it right.
Well, good.
Andy, for some reason, we got a bad reverb. I don't know if I'm going to be able to correct that in some fashion.
I can try and jump out and back in, because if I use my camera mic, then that one seems to reverb. And then if I use my other one, so let me see if I can dip out and
do that. Sound good.
Hang on just a moment here.
All right, folks, we'll be with you to the top of the hour for sure. If you want me to stick around for longer, you know what to do. So, we'll be here for 60 minutes plus. I'll be here all night if you want me to. All right. We're going to run down the week 6 schedule. I'm fired up. I just posted conference rankings. Check it out. Conference rankings. Look out for that. Just posted it. Poured my heart and soul into that one. Andy, what's going on? Let's see. We've got another window of you here we need to get rid of.
Okay, I'm not sure how to do that. I just backed out. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Does that sound better?
I can still hear myself.
You don't hear me?
No, I hear you, but I can hear myself, and that tends to be the issue that I'm sure people are going to comment on. There's a big reverb going on. Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you now.
If I'm just hearing it, it's not an issue because I can put up with it. But is there some kind of a?
You're sounding fine to me, but I'm not sure if that matters.
Yeah, it's a bunch of reverb. It's really unlistenable for the audience. Again, it wouldn't matter to me.
No, let me try one more time.
Okay.
I have to do this occasionally on my podcast. So hold on and let's see.
Yeah, I don't know what happens there. Obviously, you guys listen to me talk to a 50 zillion guests, so it rarely happens. And I am no audio expert. Keep that in mind, though, that my last position at ESPN I was in charge of studio and remote. I wasn't in charge of it. I shouldn't represent it that way. I was on the management team in charge of studio audio at ESPN. Figure that out. Yeah. So we will wait for Andy. You can get my picks top tier here on YouTube or over on Patreon, the top tier. But I love what Patreon did here just a couple weeks ago. So they made a change. They adjusted something on Patreon where you could now just make specific posts available. So if you just want to try out my picks, 59-30 against the spread. That's not a typo. 59-30 against the spread, 92-23 against the money line, then you can go to Patreon, check them out, grab it. I apologize to the one viewer who said he attempted to do that, but my picks had not been yet released. So please give me until midday on Friday. I'll release my picks and the post will be available. If you don't want to make a full monthly membership on Patreon, you can just get the picks for the week and try them out. Let's try Andy again. I'm not getting
anything.
No, it's pretty horrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask you to talk about Nebraska football, and I'm just going to shut up.
Okay. Well, Nebraska football. Well, it's funny because with the bye week, I took off to Colorado to do some hiking for about the last 10 days, but I still did my podcast on two Tuesday nights from hotels, and I was just whacked out after long hikes that day. So everybody just, they're like, "Are you all right?" Because I was just absolutely loopy both times. One time I caught a cold in about 10 minutes. First day I went up, I don't know what that was about. But anyway, been catching back up here. I got back in town last night, started writing again today and tweeting and all that, and thinking about Michigan State. And what do you know? We've got another mobile quarterback to face, and it shouldn't be that tough a matchup. I was going down their roster, and Aiden Childs is having a pretty good season passing, and he's also their second leading rusher. And mobile quarterbacks have flummoxed us in our two most meaningful games. Cincinnati, a win that's looking better and better each week, as we held Brendan Sorsby to 67 yards passing, but gave up 90 yards rushing. And I tried to tell everybody holding Sorsby to 150, 160 total yards is going to end up looking like a very good thing. We'd have taken that before the game kicked off if it was offered to us in a heartbeat. And I don't think he's thrown for less than 260 in a game since. And he just threw for 388 and 3 or 4 touchdowns to beat Kansas. So we're feeling really good, better and better each week about the Cincinnati win. But we couldn't stop him from running. And then Bryce Underwood, cut loose for, I think, about a 37, 39-yard TD against us. And now we've got Aiden Childs who can run some. So we're going to learn. We've had 2 weeks. Can we fix we had 2 glaring flaws that stuck out in the Michigan game. Our run defense, it was okay for most of the first half, and then boom, Justice Haynes, 75 yards. And it didn't even look like they blew a hole open. It just looked like we stunted. They figured it out and ran where somebody stunted from, because he just had about a 10-yard garage door to run through there, and everybody else was kind of up and boom, gone. Underwood scrambled that one in, and then their backup running back took off for 52 yards. So we gave up close to 300 yards rushing. Now, if some of that's scheme related, that should be fixable. The big worry was, hey, we're a little undersized on the defensive line this year, but it seemed like more of the problem was tackling. We were, even in the games we were winning, they're busting tackles occasionally. Okay, against Michigan, we seem to be tackling pretty solidly, except for the 3 long runs where we didn't touch them at all. But then they have a 16-play, 77-yard drive and convert 3 third and longs when we had them stop behind the line, at the line, and then they get loose from their tacklers, bust for first downs. They kick a field goal, and the big deal was that made it a 2-score game with 4 minutes left. So instead of driving down to tie the game, we're driving down to try and score and then do an onside kickoff at the end, and it didn't work out. So we've had 2 weeks. John Butler kind of got away from the stunts in the second half, and it looked better, but then we started missing tackles, like I said. The other problem, and this was just jaw-droppingly, what are we doing here, was the rush they were getting on Dylan Raiola, and they just looked incredibly fast. And a friend of mine picked up on it, texted me. I couldn't do much about it that game, but start watching for it going forward, but I went back and watched some later. And our tackles, most of the interior was mostly doing okay, but our tackles are literally just running backwards on the snap. So instead of giving them some resistance at the line, they're getting 2 free steps. And boy, you look incredibly fast when no one touches you. Your first contact is 2-3 yards in their backfield, and they were just coming out up down the sides and then just collapsing the pocket. They got 7 sacks, and somebody is like, well, Raiola's slow. No, he's actually pretty good at getting away when he gets a gap, or an open space to run to. But the ones where he was getting sacked, you just watch the sides of that pocket just crushing into the inside there from that outside rush. And he still had, 30? I think he was 30 of 41, 305 yards, a couple TDs, and 1 interception, which was his probably one ill-advised pass of the game. It was into double coverage. The lead guy popped it in the air, and the other guy picked it off. If that's the word, that was his first pick of the year too. He's done a really good job of protecting the ball, but God, he was just running for his life the whole game. And still, I took positives away from that. Before, when we lost these games by 3 points, we do stupid things like fumble it to them with 43 seconds left in a tie game, or throw an ill-advised interception. We just do weird things to give them the ball, the chance to win the game with under a minute left. This time we got down 10-0, came back, tied it up 10-10. Then the very next play, Haynes goes for 75. We counter that with a Hail Mary at the half, which you can talk about Hail Marys, being lucky. And sure, you got to have some luck there. But, little Ja'Cory Barney just basically went in there and beat them all to the ball and took it. And he wears one of the single-digit numbers, I believe number 2, which they give, to the players vote on the 10 toughest players on the team, not counting offensive linemen because of number, jersey number rules. And he's got one of them, and he still doesn't look more than like 5'10", 5'11", 175. But he's one that just all the coaches and players said has the biggest engine on the team, doesn't know when to quit. And I think he ended up with like 120 yards receiving. It took him 15 games to get his first receiving touchdown. He started every game last season and had a couple rushing touchdowns on jet sweeps, but no receiving. And now he's got receiving touchdowns 2 games in a row and big numbers there. So loving the little guy. But then again, it's like, then they go take the lead 30 to 20, and we drive down and score 30-27, try the onside kick, don't get it. But I guess what I'm seeing is in the 1-score games, we're fighting now. We're fighting back. There's a lot more fight to this team than the last 10 years of, here, have the ball. We'll drop it on the ground for you. We lost, 3-13-10 games. Matt Rule's first year are all 3 on field goals as time expired to Minnesota, Maryland, and Iowa. So we're not doing that so far. And against Cincinnati, they're driving to win the game, on the final possession. Malcolm Hartzog goes up, just plays it beautifully, intercepts it, goes, grabs the interception in the end zone. Fight. We did not let them go down and win a 1-score game. We took it. And it might not seem like a big thing if you're not us the last 10 years peeing away these 1-score games late in the game. So with Michigan State coming to town, they're not going to be as good as Michigan. One thing I look is there's a guy that has the podcast, The Film Guy, and he did a big breakdown of the Pinstripe Bowl and said Dylan Raiola, he goes, there's no freshman mistakes here. He's doing everything right. Nobody's getting open. And then he shows it how here Boston College is just covering them in the Pinstripe Bowl, and they're going, you don't have any dudes at wide receiver. You don't have any dudes. He's going through 1, 2, 3, 4 progressions. They're all covered, and he goes, and you got problems if Boston College's secondary is locking you down. So he's like, so this year we got dudes. We got Dainke. We've got young guys like Cortez Mills that are making big catches. You got 2 tight ends producing, Luke Lindenmeyer, and then the former starting quarterback, Heinrich Harburg, is like grading out the best at tight end almost each week. So he's picking up the position, obviously. But when I look at Michigan State, I don't see dudes. I'm looking at their running backs. Mekhi Frazier, they're a running team. They're going to go 55-60% of the time on the ground. And Mekhi Frazier, he's averaging like 4.7 yards a carry, long run 28 yards. Then there's Aiden Childs, long run 28 yards. They don't have a running back, I think, and then their number 3 back, long run 14 yards. They don't really look to have any breakaway there. They've got one receiver, Omari Kelly, who has a 75-yard touchdown reception, but that's his only touchdown. And he's got 21 catches through 4 games. So it's not that their air attack is doing well, but again, it's not looking super dangerous. So this is a game where if we haven't fixed defensive issues as far as being able to, hold the run in check, and because right now the defensive backfield's elite. They have their first 3 games, all quarterbacks held to 70 yards or less, and then Bryce Underwood finally broke 100. He threw for 105, and so he had a fairly poor game through the air. But we've got 5 solid defensive backs, and that's even with Malcolm Hartzog injured. We've got a sophomore replacement who's 6'1", 200, covers like a corner, hits like a linebacker. So we're going to make it tough for Aiden Childs to pass on us. And if we force him to the run and we can't stop it, okay, we've got real issues there, and maybe not the kinds we can fix. Same thing. They don't have anybody with particularly big sack numbers or tackle for loss numbers on their defense. Okay, they don't have a bunch of sacks. If they come and get us for a bunch of sacks, we've got bigger problems than we thought. So that's kind of where we are. We're favored by 11.5. And I was warning people who wanted to go bet that. It's like, well, here's the thing. Go ahead.
Well, no, I'm sorry, Andy. Actually, I just muted you. I thought that would help. I thought that would allow me to talk without this reverb, but it's still reverb. So,
still doing it.
Well, people are just going to have to put up with it for a minute because I want to get all this stuff out.
Yeah.
So one would be that, oh man, this is annoying. I'm going to turn this down so I don't have to listen to anything. Okay, so I can just talk. I can't hear anything. All right. I watched the Michigan game every play. I watched the Cincinnati game every play. Didn't see their other 2 games. Didn't much matter, of course. There's this stigma that Matt Rule has to carry around about these 1-score losses. It's now like 2-13. I know they got one against Cincinnati, but in the Big Ten, I counted back 2-13 1-score games going backwards. And obviously the Michigan game, we got a lot of Michigan fans in here, Andy, and all I heard for about the next 3 or 4 days after the Michigan win is Michigan should have won 41-13. We really did this and we really did that, and Nebraska should have done this and we gave up a Hail Mary and that's cheap and this happened and forget it. I watched the game. I think there was a definite separation between the 2 teams, but it was not super substantial. Michigan was a better football team. I expect them to be a better football team. But Nebraska may have lost to one of the 12 to 15 best teams in the country. Like Michigan's really good. I think they will be really good this year. Probably go 9-3, 10-2. So Nebraska lost to a really good football team. And yes, they were lining up for an onside kick to have a shot to win the game. And last I checked, Hail Marys do count. And last time I checked, Nebraska did drive the field the first drive of the game inside the 5-yard line, came that close to converting a 4th down, or they could have scored a touchdown, and missed a field goal after driving down the field in the second drive. So you can play that game all day about who should have done what and what should have happened. It was 30-27. And again, Michigan's a better football team as of right now. What I have an issue with Nebraska, and I just have to see this, is I got to see them break through against somebody good, somebody decent. Another stat you're not going to want to hear, and you probably know it as well as I do. Heard this the other day after the Michigan game, 28 consecutive losses to ranked teams. And I'm guessing that most of those are against, because of the division setup in the past, Iowa, Wisconsin, a lot of Minnesota, those 3. A lot of that. So we're not actually talking about them, losing playoff games to Georgia and Alabama, So it's not like so I'm picking on Nebraska a little bit, but I would like to see them be able to break through and, beating Rutgers and Boston College are decent teams last year, but, really push through against somebody good. This 11.5 point spread. Now I will most likely pick Nebraska to win the game, but 11.5 is a little heavy, I believe. And I will say that you're totally on it with the Michigan State running game. And when I did my previews on the season, I said Michigan State probably at the worst running back room in the Big Ten and one of the worst out of a power conference team in the nation. And they're just proving that. Like they ran for like 35 yards against Youngstown State outside of Aiden Childs. he like has to be Superman and do everything. He's got to be the running game, the passing game, everything. So obviously that's their ability to contain him is going to be key. And I think that's about all I have to say on Nebraska. So I'll cut you loose.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, what I was going to say is, nothing you said there was wrong. I take zero offense. It's up to Nebraska to get off their ass and beat a ranked team, and ranked teams are a big part of that. The one score losses really started under Frost. Like Riley at the end was just getting crushed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Riley just got crushed a lot. But Frost, especially that 3-9 season where I think they had 4 one-loss games to top 10 teams. That's what really just had everybody, putting their heads through walls. And then Matt Rule got in here, and even that first season especially, he just had that look on his face. Why is this happening to us? And well, welcome to Nebraska, buddy. That's how we roll since about 2015 or 16. But anyway, the last 8 games they've played against Michigan State, they're 4-4 against them since joining the Big Ten. And their last 5 games have been decided by a total of 15 points. And no game, I think the biggest spread on any of them has been like 5. So,
as you well know, Andy, better than I do, their last game against Michigan State, the one at Michigan State, is a classic Nebraska, meltdown in overtime where they should have won the game. Then they had some kind of a punt return where they kicked it to the wrong side of the field, and Michigan State duped them on that. And then Adrian Martinez throws a pick in overtime. They lose the game.
And they did not give up a first down in the entire second half of that game.
Yes,
that was the wildest stat of all, is we managed to be outscored. We needed to score by a team that didn't get a single first down. So I guess we felt sorry, and we literally kicked it to the best player on their team on the opposite side of the field, because everybody was running. They were doing the old Osborne 2 guys deep, and we kicked it. And the guy, Daniel Cerny, I think was the punter's name, and he kicked it across the field. What was it, Jalen? Was it Reed? Was that the guy? Yeah, and he just, I like in my head to say he got this weird look on his face, like what the hell's happening, before he just basically jogged up the other side of the field and in. But I think that was the last time we played him, was 2018, and I think it was a couple years before that, like 2 or 3 years before that, was we lost a game in a snowstorm, or we won a game in a snowstorm 9-6, and it was something like the first time since like 1939 Nebraska didn't score a touchdown or something like that in a game. Or maybe I'm going too far back. I thought when I read that it was something weird like that. I would have thought, somebody shut them out somewhere along the line.
I'm going to go one game further and say that Nebraska beat Michigan State to hand them their only loss in 2015 when they were on their way to going to the playoff.
God, that was the 2. I always laugh at that season because
39-38.
What's that?
I believe 39-38.
Yeah, and the thing was, that was when Iowa and Michigan State were 4th and 5th in the country when they played each other, I think, in the Big Ten championship game. And I was saying, much like the year that Riley started out 7-0 and we were ranked 7th, I'm like, we have to be the worst top 10 team in the history of college football. And I was saying, and those 2 are next. It's like they're going to go to bowl. I told everybody they're going to go. One's going to go to the playoff and get absolutely waxed. And I don't know who the other one's going to play, but they're going to get killed. And then, Michigan State got blasted by Alabama. I think they took it easy on them and kind of stopped scoring at 40 or 45. And then Iowa goes out to play Stanford in the Rose Bowl and just gets blown out of the stadium. Christian McCaffrey runs for like 200 and something yards, and they just score on almost every drive. So, it's that Michigan State game. That we complain about the refs a lot, and with good reason most of the time. But that was one time where, boy, did we get a break, because Brandon Riley did not get pushed out of bounds against that Michigan State team. He just kind of stumbled out and like into the guy a little bit, and then he came back in, caught it, and that was the winning touchdown at the end. So we've had some very exciting games with Michigan State. So history says this should be a better game. I'd take Michigan State at that 11.5. I think that's too much. And B, I would jump all over the unders, because you remember that Rutgers game last year. You brought that up. this is going to be pretty much the same thing. The temperature is going to be close to 90, and it's going to be windier than hell. It's almost identical conditions, and it was just impossible. Like, no one could throw the ball worth the damn in it. And they were just like, it was just kind of dusty if there was actual, dirt down there, not pellets. But yeah, it was just a windy, kind of ridiculous day. And I think it was our punter that kind of won it for us, Brian Bashini. I think he had a 30-yard pass. He threw a 30-yard dime on a fake punt, and then had about an 80-something yard punt near the end of the game where he put it from like R10 or something, or inside R10 down to like their 10 or something ridiculous. He just crushed it with the wind, and then it rolled forever. So we haven't played in 8 years, so who knows? You can't really compare that. But if history is history, folks, you might be very present by saying this could be the actual best game, because we really have had some great ones with them. And usually we're favored, and we're favored fairly heavily. I think the only time we maybe didn't get favored was when they had Kirk Cousins, and we beat them something like 24-3 or 24-6 in that game. So yeah, I'm expecting it to be tighter, because we'll find a way. But if they can click in the wind, and Dylan does throw a pretty nice, spiral, which can cut through the wind a little easier. So, maybe we can get a short passing game going. But yeah, even with the wind, it's still tough to judge. If you want to go deep and try to throw it 70 yards through the air, you're still trying to figure that wind out. And I don't know. We'll see. I'm looking for it to be closer than we think, and kind of a typical Big Ten bash each other around game, since it is going to be hard to move the ball through the air.
Andy Ketterson, Corn Nation, SB Nation. Please check out his work and the rest of the crew there at Corn Nation. Andy, appreciate you stopping by. Got your name right. Hopefully we can get audio fixed next time. That'll be on the checklist. We'll get that worked out some way. But I appreciate you stopping by, Andy. It was great to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good stuff right there. All right, folks. We are kind of up against it. We got our buddy Sonny Verma stopping by to talk Illinois and Purdue. And yeah, we're up against it. So Sonny, how you doing?
Doing wonderful, Mark. How are you?
Good to see you.
Packed show today.
We certainly want to point everyone in the direction of Illinois football coverage with Sonny on Locked On, also on 3. So before we get cranked up on the football analysis, Sonny, let everyone know where to find you. I do have the various X listings there, including the Bears on tap.
Yeah, you've done a fantastic job. I cover the Illini every single day, about 30 minutes of content on Locked On Illini. I just signed on with On3, so I'll be doing their YouTube and podcasts when it comes to the Illini as well. And then on Sundays, I always do a post-game recap show on Bears on Tap. So it's been a pretty good stretch for me lately. The Chicago Bears have won 2 in a row. The Illini had a very big emotional victory on Saturday. I was fearing a week ago today that, maybe I'm going to have to start focusing on basketball, but luckily that turned around. And the Cubs won today. They advanced from the wild card series. So, Mark, I'm flying pretty high right now.
And 10 years ago, I would have been all over that Cubs game and every other Major League Baseball game, every pitch, everything. I used to have the extra innings package and watched everything all the time. And I have no idea what's going on now. But congratulations to your Cubs. Who did they now play?
They're going to be playing Milwaukee for the first time ever in the playoffs. So that should be fun, because that's a rivalry that I don't know if the rest of the country realizes.
Yeah,
it's as rowdy as it is. But, I mean, now that I think about it, it's rivalry weekend for me at this point, between my baseball side and the Illini playing for the Cannon Trophy against Purdue.
All right, folks. We do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Let you know that I will be here all night if you want me to be here all night. But we're talking Illinois football with Sonny, and I saw Michael Hogue wandering around there in the chat, and I was thinking that we would finish off by bringing Michael on here, because I thought, as a big Purdue fan, that he would want to ask you maybe a question. So, Michael, if you're out there, not for the entire discussion, but maybe a last comment or question for Sonny about Illinois and Purdue, because Michael's on here every night asking me about Illinois and Purdue and how they match up and all this business. And I'm like, I haven't seen Purdue play one play this season, Michael. So anyway, the big turnaround against, I did watch every play of the USC game, and it was pretty, I was locked in to watch a great game against Indiana, I was here all off season saying this is the under the radar game in the Big Ten. This is like the one to watch. And we know what happened there. So we don't need to dig into that too much unless it kind of leaks into the USC analysis. But it's like people don't watch sports. I won't even put college football out there, just sports. That the two things that I saw in the chat all week were Illinois is going to get crushed and all these ridiculous scores about how they're going to get killed and that Iowa's going to get killed because Indiana is just like the 85 Bears suddenly and they're just going to crush Iowa and these games are going to be no contest. Now, if you take Indiana, Illinois, USC, Iowa, maybe a couple other teams in the Big Ten and you mix them up, I don't know who's going to win these games. And it was a great game against USC. And what I got from it was a guy like Mekhi Lemons making ridiculous plays in the fourth quarter to keep them in the game. But Illinois is kind of really churning the slow grind of the run game and the offensive line, and their physicality started to take hold in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it. It all started, we can talk about 2 weeks ago with that Indiana game. Now, of course, everyone's going to remember that final score, 63-10. I mean, if these two teams play 10 times, the score is not going to be 63-10 again. It's just one of those where it was perfect circumstances for Indiana and, not ideal circumstances for Illinois. I'm not making excuses. Clearly, Indiana is the better football team. I'm making that part clear. But context also matters. Indiana's a fantastic and arguably the best front-running team in college football. Kurt Cignetti's kind of made this their identity, that when they get ahead and when they're up 2 touchdowns, they don't let off the pedal at all. And then by the second half, Illinois had lost 6 of their top 7 defensive backs. And, a conversation I had with a lot of Illini fans was, look, there's a lot of teams in the top 15 in the country that if they faced off against Indiana at night in Bloomington, and then you said that they couldn't play with 6 of their top 7 defensive backs, they would lose that game too. But I think you put it perfectly. A lot of people put a lot of weight into that game and kind of carried it over. Illinois was a touchdown underdog against USC. And Mark, I think you and I were both kind of similar when it comes to our previews for Illinois. I think I ultimately had them at 9 wins. You had them at 8 wins. But both of us were like, 10, 11 wins, college football playoff, that might be a little bit of a stretch. For me, this USC team that we just played, I think is a top 20 team. When Illinois went to play Indiana, they were ranked number 9. Do I think they're the 9th best team in the country? No. Do I think they're roughly right around a top 20 team like USC was? Or I think they were ranked 21 or something last Saturday. Yeah, I think they basically played another top 20 team and they came out victorious. And I think, for the rest of the season, if you take a look at their schedule, they have Purdue this week, of course, which a lot of people are calling a trap game. And we can talk about that in a second if you think that might be important. But, after this, we have Ohio State the following week. And then we have a bye week, but then we travel to Washington. And Washington usually never loses at home unless they're playing the national champions, as they did last week. But then after that, Mark, you take a look at that schedule, and all of a sudden, it gets a little bit easier. Now, a team that most of the country, and I can kind of understand, gave up on after that debacle on national television on a Saturday night. Low-key, they can still win 10 games, 9 games. But at that point, everyone's already stopped paying attention.
Yeah, and that was something that I stated was going to happen, that there was going to be an unfair conclusion for the loser of this game, that the perception was going to be, well, they're a pretender because we don't believe in Illinois football or Indiana football on a regular basis. If that's Oregon or Ohio State, you lose a game, okay, they'll be back, they're fine. But perception is fortunately not the logistics, and fortunately and hopefully is not in the eyes of the College Football Playoff Committee, although 63-10, that was not 30-27.
Yeah. I mean, Illinois essentially now has to cheer on Duke for the rest of the year. We're going to have to hope that Indiana beats Penn State and Oregon. Because ultimately, again, if you lose to Indiana and Ohio State on your schedule, and somehow you're able to squeak by Washington, playing at Washington, and you end up with just 2 losses, and your only 2 losses being Indiana and Ohio State, who at that point might be playing for the Big Ten championship, maybe, you're still talking about a chance of squeezing in at the end. But, it is what it is. Like I knew I was very hyped up for that game against Indiana. I think I came on with you, and I talked about like the weight of that game for both programs, because both programs were kind of battling for the top spot in the second tier when it comes to the Big Ten Conference. And the way it just went out, like, Illinois, frankly, simply got embarrassed. And so it's one of those where they're going to have to fight perception. But you know what? Even though a lot of the fan base gave up, a lot of the national media, national fans kind of forgotten about Illinois, Brett Bielema on the bus ride home said that he started watching film immediately on the bus ride back to Bloomington. And you can tell that team that came out 1 week later against USC was a completely different team than the one that's quite honestly been playing the previous 4 weeks. I don't know if you recall me telling you this, but the offensive line has had struggles for the last 2 seasons coming out of the gate. The first 4, 5, 6 games, people have been wondering like what needs to be fixed. Brett eventually makes some adjustments, and then from that point on, they become an above average offensive line. A lot of people thought, hey, USC leads the country in sacks coming into this game against Illinois. We saw how Indiana just obliterated that offensive line. And a lot of people thought that those NFL players on USC's defensive line were going to feast. They did nothing. I believe they got 1 sack on Luke Altmaier the entire game. And, it's, again, the offensive line just made a different shift, whatever it is. I just hope they can keep that going through Purdue. And then we've got, Ohio State after that. And, it's just, we'll see. It's one of those where it's nice because, as I said before, a week ago, I thought maybe it's time to focus my attention on basketball. But, Mark, I still think this team is really good. They're not top 10 good, but they absolutely are. And, I'm watching their all 22s at night. They're a top 20-ish team good. And you know what? As an Illini fan, I'll take that right now.
And so the common theory or analysis here would be looking at the schedule. This is the sandwich game. It's between USC and Ohio State. However, Brett Bielema should be able to get everyone's attention by saying, well, we played these guys last year. And remember, we came with like one play like 18 times of losing this game, 50-49 against what was the worst team in the Power 5.
They gave up 46 points in the second half. I wish I was making that up. I did my preview episode this morning when I went over that game last year, and 46 points. It was 24-3 at halftime.
I'm going to get off here and I'm going to watch the little 15-minute highlight package just to recall what in the world happened, because that game was completely off my radar, but it was one of those like really late in the game. I was like, what's going on?
Right.
And I had to flip to it kind of deal. So knowing what you know about Purdue, I'm sure you've started to work on them, prep them a little bit in terms of what they're doing better. Of course, Barry Odom's had success elsewhere, did a fine job at UNLV. They're much improved. Took a USC team where, they threatened them, but if you really look deep into that game, they had their chances to be really close and threaten USC. And they're playing decent football if they're not lining up against, let's say, Notre Dame. But they're an improved football team. Obviously, Illinois should win this game. I don't know what the spread is. I would guess it's around 2 touchdowns.
It's 9.5.
9.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so just your thoughts about what Purdue's path could be and what are Illinois' concerns.
Well, for me, I just want to see what the offensive line looks like in that first and second quarter. If it looks like what it's looked like in the first 4 weeks, then you know what? This should be another game. It's going to be an offensive shootout. If Illinois' offensive line is fixed, then quite simply, when it comes to Illinois and Purdue, they go back and forth on who can be the better team. Right now, I think Illinois is clearly the better football team between the two. So if they play their game in the sense of taking the ball away from the Boilermakers and, causing, making sacks and interceptions and just simply not making mistakes, don't fumble at the goal line and much less don't do it twice and giving, Purdue opportunities to get the ball back and score. It's different. Like Barry Odom, I think, is clearly a better coach than Ryan Walters, but how much influence does Ryan Walters might still have? Like I had a conversation on the phone or on my stream about this. I'm curious on your thoughts. Do you think Barry Odom, who coached Ryan Walters at Missouri, do you think that Barry can still make a phone call to Ryan saying, hey, what did you do against Illinois last year? Or do you think because Ryan was let go from Purdue that he's done with it? Like he wouldn't even take the call?
Well, not knowing exactly, it's one thing to work for somebody. It's another thing to, some of these coaches form lifelong bonds and are like brothers. So I don't know what the status was there. Um, yeah, that's anybody's guess that doesn't know the inner workings of those relationships.
Yeah, but it's simply one of those that I think Illinois is a better team, and usually if the
Sure.
better team can just limit their mistakes and the halftime adjustment, because Purdue's done something. It's one of those. I'll kind of recap or review the rivalry for the last 4 years. A lot of people are saying this is a trap game. I released an episode yesterday saying that I don't think this can be a trap game, because trap games, you have to overlook your opponent because you don't take them seriously. Purdue has beaten Brett Bielema 3 out of 4 times since Brett Bielema has taken the job at Illinois. This is not a team that we are routinely beating, despite the fact that for the better part of those 4 years, Illinois has been the better football team. So for me, Brett knows better than anybody about the debacle that happened against Indiana. And if there's any shot of being considered, going back to the college football player conversation, you're not only going to have to go 10-2, but you're going to have a lot of 63-10 scores in your favor to just try to have the committee recognize you a little bit better. And so in my opinion, that's kind of, where we're at. I don't think Brett would let his staff overlook Purdue in hopes to beating Ohio State. We'll deal with Ohio State next week. Let's try to have a multiple touchdown win against the Boilermakers.
Sonny Verma breaking down Illinois football. The Illini take on Purdue before a treacherous stretch in the Big Ten, including Ohio State and Washington. And we'll see if the Illini can continue the momentum they built against USC. You can catch Sonny's work on Locked On Illinois and also Talking Illini on 3. And if you love the Chicago Bears, Sonny's got you covered there as well. Sonny, always good to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Mark, I always appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
All right. Great stuff from Sonny. We do appreciate him. Want to remind everyone, you got your last chance. Last chance. I could be here all night. Last chance. But my contract says otherwise. I only work here. What can I do? I only work here. I have to adhere to my contract stipulations. I understand that Joe Long has some kind of beef with me about the top 25 that actually makes sense. I would love to take that on at some point. So, Joe, give me a call on Friday night, apparently. Unless going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right. Do appreciate you being here, but we're in the overtime session. And yes, there we go. Luke, we love you. Thanks for being here. Let Joe call in. Sorry, my time is just slightly more valuable than like $1 an hour. Can't do that. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on Friday night.